Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today, if you listen to the audio version on the actual podcast, just want to remind you there's a video version where you can see me and my guest George Grieve today, and I'll welcome George here in just a second. But you'll be able to see us. There's some banners that you'll see on the screen, websites and contact information, LinkedIn address for George. There'll be all that stuff on the screen as we're talking. So if you want to check it out, go to Blue Collar Leadership, go to the youtube.com/@Blue Collar Leadership. So let's get started. I got a very special guest today. I'm excited to talk to George Grieve today. So welcome to the show, George.
Thanks, Mac. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Man, I can't wait to hear, because I'm going to hear some stuff from you today I ain't heard yet. So I'm excited to get to hear it in a way that on the platform to actually share it with everyone else. But and just to let everybody know, you're the owner of Lynn Electric and Freedom Excavating out in Lawrence, Kansas, and we were there just a couple of weeks ago. First time we met you in person and got to meet your entire team. So tell us, how do we even know each other, George? Why do we know each other?
Well, I think I followed you on LinkedIn probably 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, and started seeing your posts on LinkedIn, but I never really clicked on any of them. Last fall, I think I'm gonna say it's like October, November, was certainly before Thanksgiving time in 2023. I just decided to click on your LinkedIn and kind of started reading some of your posts and started getting into some of your information and went to your website. And I think I even texted or called you like on a weekend, like on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, around Christmas and New Year's, somewhere around the holidays.
I think it was maybe in between Christmas and New Year. So I've been kind of like looking at your website. Maybe I don't think I had purchased any books yet, but then I just had a question, or I just wanted to make a comment, and so I texted you. And 30 seconds later, you called me, and so that was our first conversation. I think probably between Christmas and New Year's this past year. So
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, and we just started talking, and here we are.
Yeah, and when I got to meet you out there, I learned you're an avid reader. You're a student of leadership. Can you talk about that, when you got into reading personal growth, leadership development content?
Well, I think since I purchased Lynn Electric back in 1999, I belong to an organization called Chief Executive Network, which is a best practices organization with non-competing subcontractors. And really, I've studied leadership loosely since then. I've seen a lot of the big speakers over the years. Patrick Lencioni, Jim Collins. I've seen a lot of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and I've always liked reading. But I would say until this past November, when when I came across and did some more investigating on blue collar leadership, it's really when I became intentional. And really reading and taking notes and having notebooks and underlining and redlining and writing in the margins and stuff like that, so that I could retain the information. So
yeah, you got serious, sounds like then.
I did get serious. So it's been a really good thing.
So you had 4 or 5 months that you got serious working on yourself. I guess I don't want to speak for you, but I kind of know a little bit of it because we've been talking a lot, and now we went out and spoke with you and your team. But I guess you got deeper into it because you were planning or thinking about maybe bringing us out, or you want to just be prepared, or you were just trying to figure out what it was really about, or tell me about that.
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, we decided that we're going to implement EOS into our company, which EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's really a business system to help you organize your company, kind of help you get laser focused on what your, mission, vision, and values are.
Yep.
And, but it's really, it's the business side. It's the competency side mostly.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of character stuff in there, but not a ton. And so, that was mainly for the leadership team, which is about 9 of us.
Yep.
But, ever since I've, been listening to leadership people and, the big talkers and kind of reading, I've always wanted to get this always to the front line. Like, it's great that the leadership team was involved in getting our vision, mission, and values and all that stuff together, but man, it's got to get to the front line. It's got to get to the guys out in the field where it matters. I mean, that's where the rubber hits the road, is the guys out there.
Yeah.
So it's great that we're all collaborating, having a good time in here, but in the meantime, they're out there doing all the work. So I wanted to push the leadership stuff out to the field. I just didn't know how to do it. And right at about the same time is when I came across, when I started digging into your website, into what you and Rhea are all about. And so, just being the visionary that I am, I think that I could kind of project ahead and say, at some point in time, I'll have to be in front of the company talking about all this kind of stuff. So,
Oh yeah.
one of the first things that I did was, I was pretty overweight. So, the first thing right after Thanksgiving, I waited till after Thanksgiving so I could have a good Thanksgiving dinner. But,
No, that's right.
I started a, weight loss program. And so I've been able to lose almost 50 pounds here since
Wow.
Thanksgiving.
Congratulations. That ain't easy, George.
No, it's not. But it coincides with all the leadership stuff that, that we talk about and that we're trying to implement in our company. And so I didn't think that it would be very fair for me to get up there in front of our troops and our teams and say, I want everyone to have discipline, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, when I didn't have it myself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of coincided with all this, leadership training that we're starting to do and this cultural change that we're trying to make. But I'll tell you, it's 20 years late. I should have lost weight 20 years ago, but I just didn't have the discipline yet. So
yeah, and if you don't mind me interrupting right there, just to say, I mean, that's a phenomenal character trait that you're exhibiting to be a role model for your team. I'm sure that they've noticed, that your team members noticed, if you lost 50 pounds in just a few months like that, they probably noticed pretty dramatically. They probably asked you if you were sick or something.
Not many have mentioned it, but in the same breath, I haven't mentioned it either.
Okay.
So I don't think I need to. I think they can see, and they know that it's not because of stress, and they've probably seen, my attitude change over the last 8 or 9 months. So
yeah,
they know what's going on. I don't have to tell them.
They know you're leading
intelligent people.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome, and they do know, and they probably, even since we've been out there and since they got into the content, they probably, some of them reflecting on that and starting to realize what is going on. And at some point, somebody probably will say something, and that's really powerful though as a leader. That's high impact leadership trait. I mean, that I already liked you, George, but hearing that, I would have said something about it if I'd have known it out there, because that is a great example. But I didn't know about it at that time. But what I like about it is, kind of like a lot of the things I did in my life, I didn't necessarily do them for me. I kind of liked doing the things that I used to do, acting a fool, drinking alcohol, and cussing and being an idiot and having a short temper, all that kind of stuff. But I really gave up all that kind of stuff to be a good example for other people. I started valuing other people at a higher level, realizing I could actually help them improve their lives by improving my own. But I probably wouldn't have did it just for me if I'd have stayed on that path. And sounds like you kind of went through that mental process of realizing what it means to be a role model, not just at work, but just in your personal life, because that's a personal thing, very personal. You did.
Yeah, it really is a personal thing. But the other thing too is that I knew that if we were going to, create a cultural change in Lynn Electric and Freedom Excavating, that I was going to have a lot more energy than I did. So even besides the modeling leadership qualities and stuff like that. I mean, I just needed to do it for myself, just so I had more energy to run the company and be a good role model for everybody.
Good for you, man. I'm just curious. Did you read the 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation book during any of that time period?
Yeah, so I've read I think 5 of yours and Rhea's books. I've read 10 Foundational Elements. Just recently, right before you guys came, I read The Ladder of Influence, Rhea's great book. Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines, Defining Influence, and then the 5 Components for High Performance Teams.
Okay, so you got some value. Do you think any of those books helped you to make that choice, or you think you'd have made it anyway? The one about losing the weight.
It may not have, like I said, I was about 25 years late losing weight, but it may not have started me to lose weight with the idea, but man, it certainly kept me doing what I wanted to do and kept me motivated for sure.
That's outstanding.
There's no doubt.
So what caused you to reach out and actually, because I remember when you first called, I don't think you were thinking about literally bringing us out. You may not have knew the special offer deal. I think as soon as I told you about the special offer deal, you seemed to get pretty interested after that. But what caused you to actually decide to literally bring us out?
I have to admit, because I can't lie to you, I knew about the special offer. I just didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to get a big sales pitch from you. I didn't know you back then.
Did you get a big sales pitch?
Nope, not once.
Yeah, so, I don't do the sales pitch. Not unless somebody's really interested, then I tell them about whatever they want to know about, but I don't.
Sure. But that was the first time I'd talked to you, so I knew quite a bit. I'd done quite a bit of research, and I kind of figured that we were gonna, at some point in time, we were gonna have you and Rhea out. I didn't know at what point, and I didn't, things just as I started to read more books, and also as I started to listen to your podcast, then it became clear. I was like, boy, the sooner I get the book study started, and as soon as I get this transformation going, the better. Like, there's no need to wait till the fall, or we need to just do it as soon as we can.
Yeah.
And so we started before you and Rhea came out. We started probably a month before that with the leadership team and the operations team and the construction services team. We started book studies with all of them. So we'd probably been through 12 chapters, some of us, and 15 chapters in other groups of the Blue Collar and Culture book.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Yeah. So just for everybody listening, you got all those books, because I shipped those to you, but in advance, quite a ways in advance of us coming out. Because not only did you take advantage of the special offer deal, for folks who are listening who don't know what that is, you can go find out about it on the Blue Collar Leadership page. If you're watching this, there's a link to it at the bottom. But in just a brief overview, anybody who purchases 300 books, $5,400, we'll invest our money and pay our expenses to come out and speak up to 2 hours, and then it's 100 for each additional hour. It's another 100 books. So you right off the bat, you said you wanted us for 4 hours, and you got 500 books. So you got about 50 team members. So on average, that's about 10 books for everybody. Not 10 of the same books. You got all kind of different books. So you got
right.
You begin with the end in mind, talking to 7 Habits. I know you value the 7 Habits just like I do, changing my life. And so it's really beginning with the end in mind. You got the books. You started doing book studies. You had us come out, and now you got enough books and you want to do it. That's another key point that I really love about you, George. You want to do the book studies after we left. That's what a lot of people don't want to do. That they just want us to come out and speak, and then they just want to hand out the books, and then nothing really happens, because you doing the book studies is what's going to make it happen. Us showing up for 4 hours might get everybody fired up for a little while, but it's going to wear off if you guys don't keep something going. So you had us come out May the 3rd. We came out to Lawrence and had dinner with you and your wife Mindy. That was awesome. She's awesome. Both of y'all are.
Thank you.
So we
around here we got on May 3rd we got the Big Mac attack, is what we say around here.
Who started that?
I did. So you guys blew into town, and you really made a big impression on us. So it was a great 4 hours. And, you know, we'll probably do something at least once a year. It was great. You know, everything that you've said, and you know, I've listened to, I don't know, you probably have like 390 or 380 podcast
Yeah.
episodes. I've listened to about 350 of them.
Wow.
And, you know, everything that you said in there was going to happen while you were here in Lawrence for those 4 hours, because, you know, right off the bat, you could tell if you looked at the crowd and read the crowd, you know, some people were bought in and some people weren't. But by the end of the 4 hours, you know, a lot of people's minds had been changed.
You
So,
saw it
and
happen.
even, oh, I saw it happen, and people came up to me. You know, I had two separate team members that came up and said, "Man, I'll be honest with you, George. Like, I didn't want to come to this deal today. Like, I would have rather just stayed home. But I'm so glad that I came, and you know, it really means a lot, and it's I think it's really going to help. You know, it's really, and I think what they, not just the company, but it was going to help them personally. And so I think that you know, your message that you and Rhea brought was, you know, this isn't just for the company, it's for you guys too. It's for you guys personal. And, you know, I know we didn't get a ton of time when we had dinner Thursday night before your presentation, but you know, I think if you ask my wife, she's probably seen a change in me, you know, as a result of going through all these, you know, all the leadership books and the book studies, and just studying leadership and being intentional. So I think I'm a lot more calm person than I used to be. And so I don't, you know, the pause button deal for me was just a life changer.
Yeah, it was for
So
me too, as you know.
yeah,
It had the same impact on you. I mean, it seems so today it seems so simple. A lot of times I think I shouldn't say it, but I say it everywhere I go because it's the most profound thing I've ever learned. But it was simple. But a lot of people ain't never really heard it and thought about it.
no, and you know, I think that might have been the, you know, if there was a defining moment when I knew that, you know, I had to reach out to blue collar leadership and to Mac, and was probably in your podcast. You know, those first, I don't know, 6 or 8 episodes that you have. You know, it's really just background on how you got started.
Oh yeah.
You know, in your blue collar career, and you talked about that. You talked about the 7 Habits being your book, and then you also talked about, you know, what the pause button meant for you,
Yeah.
and that clicked with me. And I guess the other thing that clicked for me too was, you know, we had in January, in the end of January, which I think we'd already had you booked, had you and Rhea booked to come out in May, but in January we had our annual leadership meeting, you know, planning meeting, you know, to set our goals for the year and readjust our 3-year goals and 5-year goals, and then our 10-year goals.
Yep.
And you know, it was a 2-day offsite meeting that we had in Kansas City, and as part of that, you know, everybody on my leadership team, we all went around and told each person there, you know, what's one thing that we really like about you, and then what's one thing that we really wish you would change about you. And every single one of the people on my leadership team said that they wish that I wouldn't react so quickly when I got bad news.
Wow.
And so, you know, between listening to you talk about it and then reading it in your books, and then of course you got me started on the 7 Habits. You got me started on about 10 books that I'm about halfway through. So just because I listen to what, you know, I write down like what you say, and like, and you know, if I think that I'm gonna like a book, I'll write it down. So since November, I think I've read the 7 Habits twice, and I'm listening to it right now. So I think between those 3 things, it's like it was really just kind of a, you know, an aha moment, you know, where, man, nothing needs to change except for me first, and it was powerful for me. So, and it's been a good thing.
That's another example, right? Another good example of being a role model, because they did say that. And then, you know, and then they saw you, like you said, people have seen you. Doesn't mean you're perfect. I ain't perfect either, but I'm a long, long way from where I used to be. And I'm always
Right.
striving to get better. And even if I do get bent out of shape a little bit, I think about it pretty quick after that. But I don't
Right.
get crazy like I used to. About the worst I get most of the time now is quiet, but I may be quiet for 2 or 3 days, which ain't a good way to be. But
Right.
but it's better than being an idiot. So yeah, you set another great example for them. So before we talk about that day and what you did after, real quick, let's talk about what you guys do. So anybody who's listening's got a frame of reference for who you guys are and what you do. Tell me whatever you want to tell me about both of your companies.
Sure. So Lynn Electric, we're a traditional electrical contractor. We're based out of Lawrence, Kansas, which is about 40 miles west of the Kansas City metro area. Lawrence is the home of the University of Kansas, so it's a college town, about 100,000 people. But over 20 years ago, as we started to grow, we knew that if we wanted to keep growing, we're going to have to do most of our work in Kansas City. So that's where we do 99% of our work in the Kansas City metro area. And we do all kinds of electrical work. We do service work, industrial, commercial, multifamily, multi-use, senior living, you name it, we've done it. About the only thing that we haven't dabbled in is probably hospitals. But other than that, we're a pretty well-rounded electrical company. 5 years ago, out of a great need to have our own utility division, we started another company called Freedom Excavating, where we do horizontal directional drilling, mostly for the communications and power industries. And so that's been a great addition to our companies. We started that, like I said, 5 years ago. So that's a high demand business right now. So we're really busy and grateful that we have a lot of opportunities going on right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I remember meeting Steven. Is Steven the leader of the excavation group, or he just one of the leaders, or who's Steven?
Steven's a drill operator.
Okay, he was on fire.
He was on fire. He remains on fire to this day. So
I love it.
Yeah, he so with the Freedom crew, there's 10 guys in that company, and so we had, man, those guys were so fired up. They did their own book study Friday afternoon after you guys left.
Yeah, so the folks that don't know, we spoke from 8 to 12 that day. You guys had a lunch, and then you had a little reception deal there. So they were not necessarily fired up though before the talk, right? Actually, a lot of people were not fired up except for you, I think. Is that right? I ain't really sure.
Yeah, and I think there was a few people from the leadership team that were fired up and were anxious about getting started. But basically, like in our newsletter, in our April newsletter, we announced that we're having an all-company meeting on this day, and we put links to your website and Ria's website, and said here's who's coming to speak. But other than that, I never really talked to anybody about it. Probably on purpose, just because I wanted them to be surprised.
Okay, so it was an introduction. Us being there was an introduction for most of your team. They didn't even know they really didn't know what was coming unless they had done a little research on their own.
Zero. They had no idea about book studies or anything.
Okay,
so you guys came and talked, and they got fired up, and we ate lunch, and pretty soon I turned around. We had we let the employees kind of have like a little happy hour after that, and heck, I turned around and there was no one there. Everybody from Freedom Excavating had left. Well, they went and did their own book study without even knowing how to really do it.
Oh, they hadn't listened to the 305 episode. They just were gung ho. They just making it happen.
They were making it happen on their own. They didn't follow the Mac Story procedures, but they read 3 or 4 chapters, and then I think some of them bought that book, Toolbox Talks.
Yeah, Toolbox Tips.
Toolbox Tips. Yeah, so they went through 10 or 12 of those.
Wow.
In the
afternoon. That day.
That day.
How many of them was doing that?
Well, I think probably there were 7 or 8 of them that did it out of 10.
What you think caused that? I mean, is it somebody that was the leader that caused that, or they all get fired up, or is it something unique to that team? What do you think? What do you think caused that to happen?
Maybe the realization that the people on the leadership team, the people that are running the company, really do care about them. And I think, those guys work really hard. They work really long hours for several days, and then they'll get rained out. I mean, so they're kind of victims of the weather.
Yeah.
And so when the weather's nice, they put in as many hours as they can. They work, they're on a job site at 6 and leave at sometimes 7 or 8 at night, just to get
And
as
they
much
like to
work in
talk.
as they can. Yeah, equipment utilization, and you name it, they got to get it done when the time is right. So
Yeah.
they're really hard workers. I mean, not that my electricians aren't, but they're normally undercover when they're doing their work. So
Yeah. That's a big difference.
and I think they're just, a lot of them in that crew have just some natural leadership abilities that they probably didn't realize that they had
When they started
until.
learning what a leader, a high impact leader was, not about being the boss. They bought into what leadership was. It sounds like what you're saying, and they realized every one of them can be a leader, and they want to be.
Yep.
Sounds like.
Yep, exactly. So this past Friday, so a week after you guys came to talk, I brought it. We had all the Freedom guys came in at 7 o'clock on Friday, and we listened to your podcast, and then we did 3 chapters in the Blue Collar Leading from the Front Lines book, and kind of showed them exactly how a book study could go, and what's the best way to do it, the Mac way.
Okay, how'd that go compared to what they had did before?
It went really well, and I had downloaded the audio book, so we played a chapter, and then everybody went around and shared what they had highlighted, and then why they had highlighted, what it meant to them, and we did that. Since there was all 10 guys there, it was a little bit longer than what a normal book study will be, but that's okay. It was the first one.
Yep. Yeah, they'll get.
Now they've broken themselves into 2 groups, kind of the Lawrence crew and the Kansas City crew, and they're going to do book study every Friday morning at 7 o'clock, and whoever's together, they're going to be in person, and the other guys are just going to Zoom in or conference call them in.
That's so awesome.
So,
They're gonna go fast, George, because they're a small team and they're hungry.
yeah,
They're gonna go fast. There's no telling what might happen with your excavating company.
yeah. So they're into it, and so it's been really good.
Man, that's phenomenal. There'll be a interview coming up after yours is released with a guy named Chad Cox. He's actually a director of a big trenchless crew. Does all the drilling and all that. He's been a fan. He's come to a couple of conferences. He brought his wife with him to 2 conferences in Alabama, and his video will be coming out. You've heard him though. If you listen to all the podcasts, you heard Chad before.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, 2 years ago. So he's got 2 more years of growth under his belt now, and he wanted to get back on. Ask him if he'd do one. So he's somebody that you may want to introduce him to those folks on your excavating team, because he put his phone number and email out. It'll be on the video, like whenever the video comes out, and they can reach out to him. And he had the same problem me and you had about pause, but
yeah,
but he's applied it. It got great results at home and at work. Just like you're saying, people started noticing. His family noticed. His daughters noticed. His team noticed, and his leaders have noticed. And so it's really powerful what can happen. So what else happened that day? Actually, before we talk about that, can just share your frame of reference as you sit there, because we had kind of a big horseshoe set up. We had round tables set up, but it was a horseshoe. Basically, everybody's kind of was on the front row. And what did you what were you said it a little bit about it already, but can you describe though what you saw sitting there? Because I always recommend 2 to 4 hours, and you saw why I recommend 2 to 4 hours, because if somebody just brings us in for an hour or two, 2's good. They're gonna be bought in at 2, but then they just got bought in. They wish they'd have been listening to the first 2, so then they didn't get it. So when you do 4 hours like you did, they definitely get 2 hours where they really bought in, and you don't know how long it's going to take. But what did it look like when you just, when we first started? What I saw is everybody kind of drab. They just kind of sitting there. They looking. They don't know. It's kind of quiet. They were talking before we got started. They're a good team, but they just kind of just sitting there. Wasn't nothing happening.
Yeah, it's I think that for me, I don't know if I showed it outwardly or not, but it's pretty nerve-wracking when you take a risk like this, because you don't know how people are going to really respond.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about character, especially in the blue collar world, it can be contrived as this is all the soft stuff that doesn't matter. This is, what are we talking about? All this stuff, guys kind of, could clam up, and you're like, well, man, this was more like church stuff. And this is kind of, I mean, you really don't know how people are going to take it.
Yeah.
And so,
and we're
I was
strangers.
nervous. Yeah. And so I was really nervous, but man, you could just, it's like sitting there watching grass grow. You don't realize it's happening until it's happened, but you could just see as time went on, the change that was happening. And then, like at the first break, how many people came up to talk to you and Rhea. And then at the second break, there was even more people that came up and talked. And you could just see kind of the mood in the room change. When they figured out, and this isn't just, the leadership stuff, not just about making the company better. It's about making the individual better. And I think when they realized that, hey, we want the best for you guys, not just the company, then I think that changed kind of their mindset.
Yeah, they felt it, right? They didn't trust it necessarily to begin with, even though I was saying it pretty early on. But then you shared some stories. I shared some stories about you and what you and I had talked about at dinner. And you allowed Rhea and I to say the things we wanted to say, which a lot of times we can't say those things because the leader ain't ready for us to say those things. The leader hadn't grown as much as you have, so we had to be a little bit reserved, and they're a little bit insecure about saying, hey, we're going to help you grow, and if you leave, that's okay. You don't want anybody to leave, but if you're a high impact leader and they leave, it's okay, and it really is okay. But if you express that and it's authentic like you did and we did, representing you and your leadership, while those people are on your team, they're going to be rock stars. If they truly believe you're looking out for them, and if they leave, you're going to be their cheerleader and you're going to give them a good recommendation. Of course, we always say you'll get that good recommendation, but you got to be a rock star while you're on the team. And,
sure.
And if they believe it, they will be a rock star. And then they don't want to leave. Even if they want to leave, they don't want to leave. And that's when you got a really good thing going.
Yeah, and that's the and I think that as we get further along in our book studies out in the field, that they'll come to realize that, listen, we want you to find your passion and your purpose and your why and all that stuff that we talk about. If you're not passionate about what you do here, then let's find a place where you're passionate. If you have a dream of, being an animator or being a welder, or being something else, or going to college, there might be some guys in our company and they really want to go to college. Well, let's make it happen. We live in a college town. We got plenty of resources around here.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't want them to come to work and die in the position they're in. We want them to keep growing. So, but in order for us to be able to help people to grow, company has to grow too. We've got to create more positions as we move up.
You feel like that's about to be taken to another level after what, the 4 hours with us, but not really that, but the time, the way the people have been feeling, what you've been, getting back from the people since that day. Do you feel like it accelerated maybe a little bit in your mind?
I think it's accelerated for sure. I think the people are in a lot better mood. Our teammates are all in a lot better mood. I think that there's a little skip in everybody's step. And I think that they realize that, we want to create opportunities for everybody. And I don't think that they may have realized that before. We kind of took it for granted that maybe that, we just wanted them to work what they were doing for the rest of their life.
Yeah. So. Okay. So that's awesome. So, yeah. So we put we don't do much of a sales pitch for ourselves, but we did do a big sales pitch for you that day, talking about your vision to grow the company. And first you said for a couple of years, you want to get really, really good at what you guys are doing and how you're interacting and how you're growing and developing. But you also talk about, you do want to grow the company as well. So we talked about, you helped them see the vision, right? You got the vision, but a lot of those folks, a lot of times the people on the front line, they don't really realize, hey, if we double, quadruple or something like that in size, there's going to be all kind of opportunities if I'm ready for the opportunity. If I got to do my part so that George ain't got to go hire from the outside. I got to be getting ready because I got to know too, no matter what level I'm at, this thing's coming. You guys, some stuff's going to happen, and it could happen quick. It could happen faster than you even think it could happen, but definitely faster than they think it could happen.
For sure. And, when we talk about, for a couple of years, we want to be at the same revenue level that we're at, but we want to continue to grow as people and as teammates. So I want to get really good at where we're at right now, which is about 20 million a year. But, our 5-year goal, our 10-year goal is, to be 50 million. So if you could look at our, if you're one of our teammates and you're looking at the company now and saying, okay, we're at 20 million, what's it going to be like when we're 50? Well, that there's going to has to be at least twice as many positions as there are now. So there's, I think, going to be a lot of opportunities created for the people that are on our team, for sure. And one of the reasons why we want to get really good at where we're at is so we have the time to implement the cultural change that we want and the leadership change that we want. Give everybody a chance to get to figure out who they are.
Yeah, kind of get that foundation in place. If you start growing too fast, too quick, all this stuff is hard to do. Right now, you're kind of comfortable at the size that you are and the pace that you're going, so you can kind of plug this stuff in fairly easily. But if you start going like accelerating at a crazy level all of a sudden, and you're trying to do this, a lot of times what people will drop is this stuff. They'll drop it because they get too busy. So that's really smart. I think
that's exactly right.
I can't wait for time to pass and just hear. I want you to always stay in touch with me. I hope you do. I'd like to hear what you guys are doing and hear the success. That's the ROI for us, is hearing the stories. Like you've already shared a bunch today, what they were doing.
Right.
Did you go do anything with the electrical folks too, or no? Book study wise or anything like that?
Oh yeah. So we've, I've talked to a lot of the guys, a lot of the foremen out in the field, and we're right now we're planning on implementing book studies here, so that the book studies are all company wide by the end of May.
Wow.
So we're trying to figure out the best way how to do the book studies out in the field, because we have 5 or 6 crews in Kansas City that come from all over the metro area. There's not one place physically where we can meet.
Yep.
So they're probably going to be some of them. I want to go and start the book studies for everybody in the whole entire company, and then pass them. After we get a couple under our belt and see kind of how it goes and what to do, then we'll have other guys. Those who show interest in it. Whether or not they have a formal authority or not, whoever the leadership cheerleaders are can run a book study.
Absolutely.
And so we're in the process of implementing it. I'd say we're implemented in 30 of our 50 employees right now.
Already. So by the end of May, you got to bring in the other 20 is what you're saying.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. That's awesome. You can't go too fast with this stuff, so that's good.
But it's what keeps me up at night now, because it's just like, man, I want to get there. I would love to just take like a week off of being, in the office and just be able to go out and put my jeans and boots on and just go out to the field for, 60 hours and just get this going. But, I still have other responsibilities that I have as the owner. So I can't spend my whole entire day out there, but, it's really important to me. So I'm going to make it happen.
And it sounds like you're having fun with it though, too.
I am, it's, I've been in the business I've been an electrician since 1991, and I've been a business owner since 1999. And so, one of the things that I've always enjoyed over the years is I've had several employees that have, have left and started their own company, or, I've had a few guys that started as an electrician here, and then they got the college bug. One guy went and he got his electrical engineering degree.
Okay.
And he works for Black and Veatch now. I have another employee that worked 3 or 4 years here, Adam, and he went back to school, got his construction management degree. Now he works for he worked for Black and Veatch. Now he works for J.E. Dunn, which is a huge general contractor in the Kansas City area, and he's a full-time scheduler for them. He's done phenomenal. So over the years, I've just really enjoyed seeing guys like that they get fired up because they found a good place to work, and that it motivates them to do other things. That's always been what I've enjoyed about business the most is, seeing people grow. And, we have one guy on our team, Ryan Roberts. He's, I don't know, 42, 43 years old. He started here at Lynn Electric the day after his high school graduation. He's
Really?
been here almost 25 years.
Wow.
And so, to see him come from, being an 18-year-old, to what he's grown into. He's a senior project manager. He's on our leadership team. That kind of thing is, you just you can't put a price on stuff like that. So that's what I really enjoy. And so now that we've grown the company big enough where I don't have to be involved in the day-to-day, 50, 60 hours a week, and I have a little bit more time to do leadership stuff, I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. So that guy, you say his name's Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
So he's been there from his whole career. He's been there, right? So what is he thinking about what you're trying to do now? Is he thinking it's good, it's bad, it's indifferent? He don't know. He's waiting to see, because it's big change for him if he's been there the whole time. This never happened before.
Yeah, I think he really enjoys it. I think if we gave him some truth serum, he's probably saying like, hey, coach, you're about 10 years too late with this stuff. I could have used this when I was 32.
He's been waiting on you to show up.
He's been waiting on me to show up. Like, what have you been doing?
Hey, that's the, not making fun of you, but that's the truth with a lot of, he's not on the front lines, but a lot of frontline people are waiting for this, because a lot of the folks on the front line, they suffer the most when there is not a good high degree of leadership development, throughout the org chart. The folks on the front lines, really, a lot of times, one reason they're the most hungriest, most often they are the most hungry, when a transformation like this rolls in. A lot of them buy in because they do want some change up above, and they want to be the change. Maybe they're hoping one day that they can, move up in the organization, but ultimately they just want some help, and they usually are waiting for the leader to show up and give them some, and that could be one of the reasons. If what you say is true, which you ought to know that maybe you're a little late on it, but it's okay.
Yeah.
They talk about all the time when the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago, but second best time is today if you still need it.
Right. Yep.
So
for sure.
So share with me, about an hour into that Friday morning when we came in, were you thinking you had wasted your money and it wasn't going to stick? Because an hour in, they ain't started shifting much. They ain't still kind of quiet and dry. What were you thinking about an hour in, sitting there looking around?
Well, no, so when you guys came to speak, I said, when you guys set your books up, if anybody wants, another book besides the ones that I've already purchased from you, that just write it down, and then the company would pay for that extra book. And so, there was a method to my madness. Not only did I want them to, have more leadership resources, but I also was going to kind of use it as a gauge to see, who was interested and how they were interested, and, kind of what the deal was. So I think, there's probably 50 people there, 55 people. And I think we sold, Rhea probably knows for sure, but I think we sold 35. We bought 35 extra books. Yeah, so that means greater than 3/4 of the people bought another book. And then there's some people like Steven, I think he bought some books for his wife.
Yeah. Have you heard any of them say that they were introducing it at home? Did anybody say they couldn't wait to tell their wife or their husband or stuff like that? Anything like that?
There's 3 or 4 people that said that they've started, that they've shown their wives the books, and their wives have started reading them too. And so it's kind of been like a learning thing together, kind of back and forth.
Yeah,
so
that's powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's just awesome, man. You guys, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all are one of the. I know what's gonna happen because y'all ain't gonna quit, and you got some hungry folks, and you feed them, and they gonna feed themselves. So one thing I would recommend to you, if you hadn't thought about it or hadn't done it, a lot of times, even the young people, some of them, they don't know about a podcast. So if you've been talking about the podcast, in the newsletter or some way, you may want to make sure everybody knows that it's free, that it's most often they can get it on their phone if they got a smartphone, especially the iPhones already got an icon on there for it. So that's something, if you hadn't done, you may want to make a conscious note to just make sure. Most of them know how to get to YouTube. Everybody knows about that.
Oh yeah.
So now that we have a podcast on YouTube, we kind of took care of a lot of the folks who don't know about the real podcast out. But a lot of times people, would listen to it on the audio in their truck or something like that when they may not think about accessing YouTube. So you start hearing folks telling you about a podcast and doing all that kind of stuff. That'll let you know they're feeding themselves. And that's what you want. You want a team that you feed them too as a leader, because they need to know you're hungry and you're on board. But when all of you are feeding yourselves and you're eating together, because one thing I didn't say to your team, but we say it often, and we did it though. But I mean, they ain't so much time to talk. 4 hours seems like a lot, but it really ain't nothing. But we did invite them to the leadership table. Sometimes what I'll say is, but I'll say it right here. So maybe if they didn't hear it then, maybe they'll listen and they'll hear it here. But when you get invited to the leadership table, like we did, everybody on your team was invited to a seat at the leadership table, because it ain't about the org chart. And so when they get invited to the leadership table, a lot of times what I tell them is, your leaders put you at the table, giving you the opportunity, but you get to decide what you're going to eat. You're going to eat a hot dog or you're going to eat filet mignon. The leader ain't got nothing to do with what you eat when you're sitting at the leadership table. It's up to you. And so you've seen those folks who are eating good already. And sounds like a lot of your team is eating good already at that leadership table.
I believe so. Like we still got some more work to do to get it implemented 100% in the company, but we definitely, we have even before you guys came, we had a really good crew, and so it's been a really good experience so far, and it's been a great. I think the way that we implemented, we started a book study with a smaller amount of people before you guys came. And then we kind of used you and Rhea to introduce the whole concept to the rest of the company, that's out in the field that we weren't able to bring into the office. And so I think if you will, you guys set the table for the leadership, for the leadership meal. And I think that, there's no excuse. Like you said, the podcast is free. YouTube's free. There's so many resources out there. A lot of our guys have, let us know that, boy, they'd rather listen to a book. Man, they're out there on Audible. They're out there wherever. But, if you can't afford the books, man, the podcast is free. The YouTube videos are free. And so I know there's a handful of guys, I'm going to say 5 or 6 that I know of so far that, they're already listening to the podcast on the way to and from work. So
that's awesome. So you guys, you got plenty of buy-in. There ain't no doubt. I mean, like we shared with you when we were there, we go all over the country. We see some teams that ain't hardly bought in. You guys are, at the top of the top tier of people being bought in. So you guys are exceptional for what we see. So that's good. The other cool thing about it is you're relatively small size, so it can happen fast and it can happen for real. And you guys are gonna have fun. That's what I know. You're already doing it. So share with me what did I know you were sitting. Obviously, you're sitting with Mindy, and I think there were a few other ladies with you there. Ginger and was it Sarah?
Lynn, Ginger and Sarah. Yeah.
Yep. And then there was one more.
Maybe Lynn. Yep.
Okay.
Lynn.
So what have the ladies thought? Have you had any feedback from the ladies that were just what they thought about the whole day?
Well, Mindy's completely bought in. She was completely bought in, before you guys even came.
Oh yeah,
she's the VP of finance. So she's the one who had to write the check to you guys. So she knew it was coming down when I ordered the books.
And she was ready.
She was ready, and she didn't give me the business for spending some money to help our troops out. So she was already bought in. Ginger loves it. She's our director of HR. Sarah's a project assistant. She works remotely. She loves it because it's kind of helped her become more cohesive with the team because she doesn't see us all the time. And so I think that they really enjoy it. It's probably not this type of a leadership program in a blue collar industry like we're in, especially a subcontractor that's, like you said, in the grand scheme of things, small company. These types of programs don't happen all the time. And, the reason that we chose this one was because it included everybody. We got everybody to come. And it's from the first week apprentice that has no experience all the way up to the CEO. It applies to everybody equally, and everybody has the same opportunity. And so that's why, it's really basically a culmination of a 20-year dream for me to be able to bring this kind of training to our whole entire company.
Yeah, because relative to you guys, you're a big company now compared to what you used to be, right? When I say relatively small, we speak to the U.S. military sometimes and county governments with 15,000 people and stuff like that. So it's still relative, right? Compared to a 5 or 10 person company, 50 is a lot. And coming from where you guys came from, $1 million, I think when you bought it, you said it was $1 million company, and today it's 20 million. That doesn't happen by accident. You guys doing a lot of really, really great stuff. And you just put a supercharger on that engine for what just happened.
Yeah. Yes, we did. We were bitten by the Big Mac attack for sure. Yeah.
I love that. So
yeah.
anything that there is one more thing I want to ask about, and I know about a little bit, not much, but I know your son Gio works there, and it's important for family to be involved in your business. Your wife, like you said, is VP of finance and the owner. And Gio, when I first went around and met him, we just shook hands, and he said, I'm George. And I said, Gio, because you had told me he goes by Gio. And, he kind of smiled then because I knew him at a different level than he understood I knew him at. But then later he was telling me he really liked that stuff. He told me, afterwards. So has he shared anything with you, or you and him had any talks, anything like that?
Well, we have. So, your story with your son, Eric, I believe, right?
Yep.
Is similar to Gio and I's because Gio's mom and I are divorced. Mindy and I are both on our second marriages.
Okay.
And so there was a whole period of time, most of the time that Gio was in high school, we didn't speak very much.
Oh,
we spoke a little bit, and thank God through the mentorship of Mindy, even though we weren't talking, like we still always recognized his birthdays and recognized Christmases and dropped off presents. And even though he wasn't coming to our house, and it was kind of a contentious relationship for a little while. But he came to work for us 4 or 5 years ago, and things have gotten a lot better. But I think that he's seen the change in me over the last year as far as the pause button goes. And I think that's helped tremendously our relationship. He kind of understands me more. And he immediately was like, that night, he was texting me. He's like, this stuff's not only going to help at work, but this is going to help me at home too.
Outstanding.
So he's definitely bought in. So he's just 23. So it's like I've told him and other guys that are around his age that are on our team, man, you guys have such a gift to be able to start learning this stuff at such a young age. It's like, I mean, you said it was 2008 before.
Yeah, I was 39.
You were 39. So it's like, could you imagine having a 16-year jump start on where you started from?
That's,
I
can't imagine. I hope that me and you can help them see it, because that's one reason not just that it's your son, because everybody there is not your son, but you probably see them in the same kind of way. You want to help them, like you said already, have a better life. But
Right.
but that's one reason we appreciate folks like you so much, because we do see it as you're sharing your team with us, and in that case, it's your son you're sharing with us, and we don't take it lightly when we walk out in front of people like you saw, you know. And
Sure.
again, I really, really appreciate you letting us say what we wanted to say. That's a freedom we don't get everywhere we go. And when I can walk out and say whatever I want to say and trust that you got my back, that you bought into what I'm saying, and maybe even if sometimes you may not understand why did he just say that, because you might not know what I'm going to say 20 minutes from now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That it's going to tie back to. But
right.
But
So, you know, the one thing you know, I talked to a lot of people that following Monday and Tuesday after you guys spoke on Friday.
You intentionally went out and talked to them, right? You told me I'm gonna go out in the field and talk to these folks.
Yep, and you know, there were some emergencies that came up, but I called a lot of people. I called probably half of our employees.
Okay.
But one of the things that they said is like, man, we had that handout, that 11-page handout, and they're like, man, we wish we'd had like an hour or more time. And I said, well, I don't think it was a question of not having enough time. I said, I think that Max just got super excited and was just, you know, Rhea couldn't reel him in enough. But 4 or 5 hours, man, you got to have 4 or 5 hours in your guys' talk. I don't know how you could get everything done in 2 hours. It's I mean, it's just it was phenomenal, and you know, for 50 people to be able to spend 4 hours in front of you guys and listen to what you had to say was I think everybody will look back and it'll be a, you know, red letter day in their life, I think.
Yeah, so we really appreciate that, and we always hand those handouts. We can't ever teach what all's in those handouts. Literally, if we literally taught the handout, like if you said, I want to pay you to teach that handout, we'd have to put some blanks in there first of all, fill in the blanks, make sure we covered it all. But it'd probably take 8 to 12 hours to teach that handout, to do it actually justice.
Right.
Because a lot of times, see, what happens is, and this is the part we don't ever know, and maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't see it, I don't know, but you've been to a lot of conferences. It's one of the things I probably do slightly. It's different when you're in a small group room like we were with you guys versus, you know, sometimes there's a couple thousand people out there when we're talking. So then it's kind of like you just go give you a message. You ain't connecting with everybody. But when we're in a small room like that, we're literally trying to connect with as many people as possible, as quick as possible, so that when we start giving them the good stuff, they can get it. So we never know how much connecting time, how many stories do we have to tell on the front end before we even get into the sheet? Because a lot of times we don't get into the sheet for like an hour or so. Some people say, well, if it just started on the sheet, but if we just start on the sheet, we ain't connected. And then we never do get to connect. We got to tell all these, but a lot of people don't know that. You know, I read a book from John Maxwell called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And before I read that book, it took me a long time to connect. It was back when I was leading those Kaizen events, you know, when I'd go in and have 5 days with people. A lot of times I'd always tell them it'd take middle of the day Tuesday to middle of the day Wednesday before we all really feel like a team. And once I read that book and I started doing the things I was learning about how to connect with people, I could connect usually in 15 minutes on Monday morning. I was good to go after that, because before that, I went straight in and went to talking about the competency stuff, the tools, what we were going to do. And I respected the people, but I didn't try to connect with the people. I just expected them to connect with me instead of me to connect with them. So that's part of what we don't ever know when we're in a smaller group, is how much connecting. Because if I didn't really see many people that didn't seem connected in your room. I mean, on your team, I saw a lot that didn't know they didn't know what to expect. So they was trying to figure out, what is all this about? Who are these crazy folks, especially the little guy to act like a nut? What's he all about?
Right. Well, I use that. So when people said, man, I wish we'd had a little bit more time, I said, well, what didn't he talk about on that sheet that you wanted to talk about? And I said, well, that's a great jumping off point for where you should start your leadership journey. So what is it that you didn't talk about that you want to know more about? Because I guarantee you, if I don't already have the book in my office, Max and Rhea have it on their website.
Yeah, and even that last page, you know, we talk we talked about a lot of that stuff that was on all them pages before we ever even started talking about the pages. But that last one was on blue collar leadership and supervision, more about actually leading other people. But one of the main things on that last page was artificial influence, and we talked about that actually early on. So we talked. They may not have realized it because it's a lot, right? We talk about spraying you with a fire hose, and we talked quite a bit about what was on that page, even though I never got to the page and said, look at this thing, look at that thing. So that's what a lot of people, we don't teach by PowerPoint, and we don't go bullet by bullet and make it boring and that kind of stuff. Because the number one thing that we want to do is we want people to want to read those books, especially when you bought all those books, because they go those, like you saw those book studies you did, the 3 chapters. When they go through those books like that, they gonna get some gold out of that, not just from the content, but from the why did it matter to me? What did I value and what did it mean to me? That point. So that's phenomenal. The thing is, just like you said, I got 10 books to read. All of your hungry folks, they got 10 books to read too, literally, because you bought them, and they can't get through them fast enough. So let them go fast as they want to go, but still have them participate in the book study. They can read the Frontlines book tonight, but tomorrow they come in and do their 3 chapters with a team, because it is always value from doing the book study, no matter how many times you read the book.
So what's funny is so the blue collar, the leading from the front lines, and then also the 5 components for building a high performance team. I read those probably in, I don't know, December or January, and the 5 components of a high performance team I've read probably 2 or 3 times. But every time I'm in the book study, I underline more. You know what I mean? It's like, George, you read this 3 times. Like, wouldn't you think you've underlined? I've learned something new every single time I read those books. And just like today, we did chapter 16 to 18 in the ops team, in the 5 components of leadership book. And there was 2 or 3 more nuggets that I underlined and starred and wrote in the margin, because just it hits you at different times. You've had different experiences even since the last time you read it, so it means different things.
Absolutely. So, a lot of people who aren't growing don't know that. They don't understand, because if you're not growing, there ain't a lot of value in reading the same book over and over, because it's the same book over and over, because you're the same person. But as soon as you start growing, everything starts to mean something different. And you said something, though, I want to ask you about that. If you still got time for a few more questions.
Sure.
So you talked about, you just went through with the ops team, which you've been going through with them before we ever came out there. So the book studies you went through with the ops teams, since we were out there, do they feel any different than before? Does that team seem any? Did the live event do anything to that book study group?
Oh, I think it either solidified, or I don't know if solidified is the right word, but it brought to light the reason why we're doing all this. The live event did.
Okay.
And so I think that they're doing the book studies with more focus and more purpose, I think. And they're understanding, like, okay, now I understand, kind of like beginning with the end in mind.
Yep.
They understand why we're spending 15, 20, 30 minutes a week with the leadership drip, as you say.
Yep.
And so that's why I think that live event was so important.
Outstanding. So,
and hey, I just want to say one thing, though.
All right.
For everybody out there that's listening or whatever, because they might, people that don't know you and Rhea, and that like are maybe watching this or the other. I think you've done 10 or 11 of these, real people, real stories. Deals, but we're not like, I'm not getting paid a dime. I'm doing this because I'm not saying all these nice things because I'm getting paid, or I get 10 free books, or this is just just the same as you guys are. I'm doing this just because I like leadership development. I think it's something that our society needs in general. So I don't get any money for promoting blue collar leadership. I don't get a free page, a free download. I don't get anything.
I don't get much myself.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So this is just someone out, just like you and Rhea, just spreading the word. So because a lot of times you listen to these all of the leadership stuff besides yours and Ria's, and you think, well, what's this guy getting out of this? Like, why is he doing all this stuff? And some of those guys, they get paid big money. You've talked about that.
Yeah.
That's not the case here with blue collar leadership and with what we've experienced and what we're trying to do. It's not so I just want everyone to, this is not an advertisement like where we rehearsed and, hey, I want you to say, this is just off the cuff. This is just a conversation between George and Mac.
Yeah. And everybody gets to hear it.
Everybody gets to hear it.
And this one, go ahead.
They can be offended or not. Right.
Yep. And I hadn't said that with you today, but I do appreciate you coming on, because everybody who I invite on, what I know, even if they don't know it, but usually I say it somewhere within this video, is I appreciate it, because what you're actually doing is helping me help other people. You're helping me through your story. And just like you're talking about right there, somebody may hear this and they get motivated and inspired to go do what you're doing, and they may not like me. That's fine. They ain't got to use me and they ain't got to use my stuff, but I want them to go do this stuff that you're doing. I don't care who they do it with, as long as they do it. It's just like when you say you want your folks to grow and excel, you hope they stay in your company, but if they don't, you want them to go grow and excel, because our country needs some help. Our country needs people to grow and excel, and wherever that's got to happen at, with whoever, because see, what happens is, like you said, you've seen a lot of speakers. You've seen all different kinds of speakers. I don't know if you've seen one like me. Not that I'm better than them. I'm just different, right? I tell stories like people don't usually tell on those stages. I tell some hardcore stories, but I know who my audience is. They're a bunch of hardcore guys and gals sometimes that need to know you coming from the world that they live in. Some of them still live in that world that I used to live in, and they really do need some help. And a lot of them don't realize the help they need is in the mirror. And that's why I would like to share my story, right? It's so like you're writing your story, like your weight loss. That's a big deal. You starting to use the pause button and effectively use it. Sounds like that's a big deal. And that's how we become influential to other people, is through our stories. But a lot of people, especially a lot of those big dogs, a lot of them, they don't tell those raw stories. They talk about challenge and overcoming and adversity, but they don't. And some of those people, I mean, like John Maxwell, he probably ain't got some of the stories that I got.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, he knows what he's talking about, but he grew up with an awesome father and a pastor, a university president of a university. I think his dad did all those things, and just seems like he had what I used to call a normal upbringing, but what I know now is that's actually abnormal.
Right.
The normal is more like what I went through, and sounds like some of what you went through possibly with your marriages and your son relationship. So that's what it's really all about. Just being real for what I call the real people. That's why this thing's called Real People Getting Real Results.
Exactly. And
that's what it is. And I'm gonna tell you, we're recording this on the 13th on a Monday afternoon. This is coming up Friday. You're talking about the frontline entry level guy. The video that's coming out Friday with Jim McEwen. He's a frontline entry level guy in a recycling department up in St. Peters, Missouri, the place we were at just a few days before we spoke to you guys.
Right.
But he talked for like an hour and a half, I think. And I mean, he's a frontline entry level guy leading 2 book studies a week, been doing it for 2 years. And you want to get fired up, and you want to fire up some of your frontline folks, get them on that video once it's available to them, because it's powerful.
Yeah.
I hope I'm able to get some of your folks one day. Maybe they'll get fired up and they'll have a story, and maybe they'll want to come on here and tell their story.
Yeah, I think we'll see what happens. We're going to keep planting the seed for sure. So
that's outstanding. Yeah. Anything I didn't ask you, or anything you want to share or talk about before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so. There's that, I think one of the, and it's in several of your books, that story about the guy who's he's an explorer. He's walking, and he walks to a new town. He sees that guy at the picnic table, and he says, "Hey, what's that story? Tell that story."
What's the town known for?
Yeah, tell that real quick. That's just a minute deal.
Yeah, basically, the guy's in a strange town. He walks up to a guy sitting on a bench, and the guy's like, he asks him, the guy sitting on the bench, the local older guy, and he says, what's this town known for? He said, well, you can start here and go anywhere. Is that the story you're talking about?
That's it. That's what I'm talking about. And that's like that I got goosebumps right now when you told that story, because I think that one of the things that as a leader that we have to teach everyone, doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter where they are in their, where they think they are in their life, man, you have an opportunity right now to make a change for however you want. It might be in Lawrence, Kansas that day that you and Rhea spoke to us. It might be somewhere else, and it doesn't matter where you're at. It's always a jumping off point. It's just like, I think it's Bob Chapman, another book that I'm halfway through, because like I said, I got about 10 books that you said I'm supposed to read.
Look, I got some more for you back there.
But it's like he says, it doesn't matter. We have the ability to hit the reset button anytime we want. And
oh yeah.
I think that, especially in today's world, people need to know that. And that's one of the main things that I'd like to teach everybody, not teach, but that I'd like to have everybody learn, is that, man, it doesn't matter. You can always, doesn't matter how bad you think it is, you can always change. And there's that possibility no matter what circumstance you're in. So I think that's one of the greatest stories that you've told and you've told it in 2 or 3 of your books. I think I read it the first time in Defining Influence.
Yeah, and I read it. It ain't John's story, but I'm sure he shared it in some book, but it ain't his story. He got it from somewhere. But
yeah,
it's true. It's true in just it's a good principle for life. And I'm just grateful that you're one of those leaders who shares that same vision I got of helping people. And you probably already do something like this, but some of these quotes you get, you might like to start putting them up on the wall or get some t-shirts made with some of the quotes. I know one client, they did facilities maintenance for schools, and the 30 traits book, the teamwork book. I know you got some. I don't think you read that one, but you read a bunch of other ones, so you can't read them all in one day. But they actually took the 30 traits and listed them out on the back of a t-shirt and put some kind of quote to go along with those traits, because all the things about be growth oriented, be trustworthy, be, every one of those chapters in that book starts with the word be. And so that kind of stuff, you put it on your team's t-shirt, and you probably already got some kind of logo and slogan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I know, win the day.
Win the day. Yeah, that's our mantra that we created over the last year and a half. So
yeah, so you could have some win the day, and then you could have some quotes that actually relate to that slogan, win the day.
Yeah,
I mean, like, be proactive. That's be a lot of these B words.
Right. I want to ask you a question. So I know we don't want to talk about politics, and I don't want to talk about politics, but if we gave everybody in Congress a copy of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and made them read it and implement it, do you think that we'd have a better country?
If they would apply what's in the 7 habits, oh yeah, our world would be different. I mean, we couldn't imagine the world we would live in. Yeah, the 7 habits could change the world. Dr. Covey, he didn't create those habits like he says in the book. He didn't create them, just like nobody created gravity. But he took those 7 principles and packaged them together. And I think about them every day. Every single book I ever read, all I see is the 7 habits. I'll read one book and I'll say, this ain't nothing but habit 1 from beginning to end. It's just told in a different way. And Leadership and Self-Deception, that's a book that I talk about a lot. And it's nothing but really habit 1. But it's a book. Before I had my books, it's a book I used to keep and give away all the time. You've heard me talk about it.
Sure.
One day, maybe if I ever get time, I might do a podcast series talking about that book. But I read books written way before the 7 habits was ever even, written, before Covey was even born. Probably I read books, and I see nothing but the 7 habits. And that's what he did. That was he researched like a professor of a college would do, which is what he was.
Right.
He developed that pattern.
Yeah.
And the eighth habit is finding your voice and inspiring others to find theirs. And that book, I mean, it's big as the 7 habits, and it ain't but the 8th habit.
Right.
And when I read that book, I'm like, Dr. Covey wrote this for me. That's what I'm trying to do. Find my voice and then help other people find theirs, which is what you talked about a minute ago when you said, I want to help people, go live the life they want to live wherever that's at. If it means being a welder or doing something in animation, something that's not going to happen to either one of your two companies. What you just described is the 8th habit. So if you ain't got that on your list, George, you know what you got to do.
Well, I'm going to add. I'm not going to put it on there yet because otherwise I'll start it and then I'll be at halfway through another book.
Yeah, you need to. Probably, I would recommend to you, since you bought all those books for your team, I would make those a priority if I were you, to read those books from us, not because we're special, but your team's going to have access to those books, and you want to know what they're learning, what they're going through, because some of them they're going to go read some of those books before you get a chance, because the first one they read may be one you ain't read yet, and you done read all these other ones. That's just the way it works. But those were the ones I'd make a priority.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna read Supervision next.
Yeah, that's what the last page was about that you were talking about. And and that one is the one your formal authority leaders need. But for them to be able to do that, they got to know what's in the Frontlines book, meaning not know it, not just hear about it. They got to be living it.
Right.
And then they got to know what's in the Teamwork book. And then again, not just be reading it, but be living it, for them to really effectively do what's in that Supervision book, which is the one a lot of leaders like you bring us in, George, and that's the book they want us to talk about first. And that's the one we got to listen to the customer, and they don't know us and they're trying to tell us what to do. So that's what we do, is talk about that one first. And there's some good stuff in there. There's some things that you can kind of cherry pick and start implementing that will help you. But the foundation for all of that is the other stuff, the fundamentals, defining influence, the transformation book, the Frontlines book, the Teamwork book, all that stuff is your foundation for the higher level stuff, because people going to be learning that stuff like the Frontlines book. That's where you're going to start. That's where everybody does start, with the frontline folks. But if the frontline folks start learning that and the leaders ain't learning that, the first thing they realize, the leaders need to be doing all this.
Right.
And so then they lose trust, because the leader's saying, hey, you need to go learn what's in this book. But it's obvious the leader hadn't learned what's in the book, meaning they're not living it. Like you losing that weight. That's why that's a big deal. When folks start learning these principles and then they start putting it together, that you losing that weight is an example of you leading yourself well. That's you ain't got to tell them, you ain't got to teach them. They're going to learn it as they go through this process. And especially, see, this is why a book study is important. There's going to be a point, there's going to be some chapter you going through where that's the perfect thing to share. And it's authentic. And you say, I underline this because, I wasn't doing so well on this, leading myself well. I done got however many pounds overweight, and, I was having this problem. I was tired. And this stands out to me because, I started reading these books and I got in gear, and I started looking in the mirror, and I started working on me, and I got these results. I lost this weight. I feel better. I'm off of these medications, or, whatever's better. That's the kind of sharing you want, is from a humble, vulnerable, authentic kind of place. And that's when people start learning this, and then the ones who are getting results share those kind of stories. That's when it starts really being powerful, because the people who are engaged, which sounds like most of your folks are going to be engaged, now they're learning how to see this stuff. They learn how to see it in themselves and to see it in others and to recognize it. And then they start recognizing, hey, we're doing this stuff. Hey, George is doing this stuff. And then they start, the more they learn too, the more they appreciate what all you are doing for them as a leader.
Hey, another thing that I forgot, as far as feedback goes, when you, right before you and Rhea left, you guys shot a little video in front of one of our service fans, and then you posted it on your social media. And we posted we posted your event on our social medias too. But we've had 3 or 4 of our friends that aren't even in our business, not even in our line of business, that have called and said, hey, I want to talk to you about, what you guys did, because it's something that our company needs to do. I haven't had that was just happened last week, so I haven't had a chance to pass on your information yet. But
well, that's awesome. So
we generated some buzz outside of Lynn Electric and Freedom's influence too. So
that's awesome.
That was good.
That's what we talked about in the room. This thing's bigger than just you guys and your company, that you start leading your city, right? And that's
exactly
that's what you literally start doing. And I don't remember if I shared with you and the team, but the book deal, we don't care how many people split it up. if you had 10 people want to pay $540 a piece and they all get 30 books a piece and y'all rent a venue and split it by 10, and
Sure.
we don't care how many people come into the room. You guys might want to, y'all might have enough influence one day that people start wanting to do that, and then you pool up your resources, and we could come every quarter or however often somebody would want to get us out there, and however many people y'all could put in, and y'all start growing together as a community, and then y'all could be doing book studies across companies, all kind of things that could happen. But
sure,
you're already doing it, so that's awesome when the community is reaching out like that. They could be coming into your organization. They don't have to even have us. They could come out. You could show them how to do a book study. You could go over and say, "Hey, I'll kick off one for you guys. Show you how to do it."
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, all right, sir. It's been a privilege. You got anything else?
No, I just just if there's anybody out there that's sitting on the log with the 5 frogs, time to jump off. I think you got to make a move. You can't sit on your hands. So if you're take the risk and start a book study, or hire take you and Rhea up on your book offer and get you guys there. It's you can't waste time.
You got to take action, right? You got to make it happen.
It's like the event thing that you talk about. Like, man, this is an event. None of it matters, no matter how excited you are, unless on Monday you do something. And so that really hit home for me. So,
and you did it.
We're trying.
In spite of an emergency coming up, you still called them and you still made it happen.
Yep, we're just trying to make it happen.
All right, sir. So you reach out anytime, and anybody who's watching or listening, like George says, maybe you want to do the special offer, but Rhea's been putting my phone number up. You ain't got to do the special offer. If you just want some coaching and mentoring, you can call me. I'm going to talk to you for free. Anyway, everything we do pretty much is for free. We make some profit from the books, but pretty much everything we do is for free, helping people. We've supported companies like yours, George, for many, many years, some companies repeatedly. And I was just thinking today, because of something that popped up, and I was thinking, I've supported this particular company for 6 years, and I'm like, they never paid me a penny because they only bought books, which is the way I do the deal. They got the book, right, and they got the value out of the book, and it's just rewarding for me because we kind of created that model. We don't mind selling somebody a book, but we want to help them because we want to help them, and
right.
And it's our business. We get to decide how to do it, and nobody got to tell us we got to make a certain amount of money and do all that kind of stuff. So we make enough money because we don't want much stuff. We don't want much of anything. So I always tell people, if you want to be wealthy in a hurry, stop wanting everything, and then it's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, it's getting harder these days.
Yeah, it is,
with all this inflation. But thank you, George, and you keep writing that. Every choice you make, man, with your team development, you writing that story, that cultural transformation, and you're gonna have a powerful story one day. You guys may be doing podcasts. I know some companies where folks like you actually do a podcast, and you talk about this stuff, and you interview other people, and you're learning from them, and they're learning from you guys, and that's something you could do at any time you get ready down the road to start creating a platform. Some of your guys could come on. Y'all could have round tables and talk in a room, and all kind of things you could do.
I think we'll work on me first, and then the rest of the company, and then we'll see what happens.
That's a good plan right there. You stick to that, you're gonna do some good stuff. All right, then we're gonna wrap it up, George, and I appreciate you being on.
Appreciate you and Rhea, and thanks for everything.
And anybody in your team, my number, if they've been watching, they saw my number. Anybody in your team can reach out to me as well. All right, folks. Thank you, George, and everybody who's been listening, thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. And maybe if you've been watching the real people getting real results, if you're one of those folks that know me somehow, directly or indirectly, you'd like to be on one of these shows and help me help other people, reach out and let me know how I've impacted you and that you're willing to hop on. All right, folks, talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.